In this lesson, we'll learn how we can rig the perimeter of a drawing with curve deformers. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're back to our big-brained alien character, and the focus for this character has been primarily to use bone deformers to rig his arms and his legs. We even used a bone deformer, dropping in some bones for his head as well. So at this point, we should have an understanding of how we can use both curve deformers and bone deformers to rig characters. And so what I'd like to do is take us back to using curve deformers. If you recall from the end of our previous lesson, I was talking about how it would be really cool to be able to rig his body area. Basically, his body is just one drawing. It's kind of shaped like a bean. And it'd be really neat if we could rig it to where we'd have the ability to basically add a little bit of jiggle or movement to it, perhaps when he's walking or running or jumping or what have you. So we can very easily do this using curve deformers, but in an entirely different way than we have in previous lessons. All right? So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm actually going to go ahead and hide the visibility of his head. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and hide the visibility of his right leg. And let's go ahead and actually hide the visibility of his right arm. I just want to be able to see that body very clearly as we rig it. So the focus is going to be on the perimeter of the body, basically rigging it with curve deformers, following the entire perimeter, encompassing the entire shape. So with our body layer selected, we'll come up here to our deformation toolbar, and just as before, we'll click on our rigging tool and our setup mode. Now, since I'm going to be very precisely following the perimeter of this body shape, I don't want to run the risk of accidentally dropping in a bone deformer and having to take steps back or anything like that. So I don't want to really work in automatic mode. I'll go ahead and switch to curve mode. Okay, awesome. So let's go ahead. I'll zoom in one more time using 2 on my keyboard and just using spacebar. I'll kind of reposition my camera view there. And let's go ahead and just start here at the top. That basically drops in our offset point. And then I may want to go ahead and drop a curve point, perhaps right there, maybe right here as we kind of start to have a definite curve in the form, maybe right there. And let's see, we may want to drop one maybe right about there, and then we'll go ahead and come back up here to the top and put one right there. So for something like this, when you're rigging something with a perimeter, you may want to do it a couple times, 2 or 3 times, and kind of determine how many points you want to drop down. It's kind of a trial and error thing ultimately, but I think this will work, okay? Now the next thing I want to do is basically have our chain here, our lines, to follow the perimeter of this body, okay? We can do that by adjusting our Bezier handles. Mind you, we're still in setup mode. So I'm going to grab my transform tool, okay? I'm going to make sure that I have my deformation body selected still. And let's go ahead and start to move these Bezier handles and start to kind of manipulate the overall chain that we have here, this overall rig. So I'm just kind of coming around. And you can start to see how I'm able to use these Bezier handles to start to have the perimeter, basically, the perimeter of our curves to match up with the perimeter or the line work of the body. So that line work really does kind of provide us with a nice kind of little road to follow. So something kind of like that's looking good. Okay, we'll go ahead and start to come around the back side here. So kind of pulling out that handle further. You can see how it's allowing us to manipulate that overall chain right there. So these Bezier handles work pretty much the same as they do when you're using them, say, with one of your vector-based drawing tools over there in the toolbar. It basically allowing you to adjust this line right here. All right, great. So basically what you want is for this overall line to be as close as possible to your drawing, all right? So I would say that this is looking pretty good. Just kind of going around making some last minute little tweaks. One thing you can do if you don't want one side to affect the other when it comes to handling these Bezier handles, you can hold down Alt and click on just one, and you'll notice how it just controls that side right there. Whereas if I don't hold down Alt, you can see how it affects the other side of that curve point. So something to keep in mind, a nice level of added control through that. So just zooming out, hitting 1 on my keyboard. I'm pretty satisfied with how everything is looking. Let's go ahead and exit setup mode and watch this whole body shape just blow apart. Okay, so that looks awful, but that's okay. We've run into this before. Basically, we want to copy the state in which we rigged the body to the animatable state that we see here. And we know that we're in an animatable state because all these lines are green. So before I come up here and click that button as we've done before, again, you want to make sure you have your deformation layer, in our case, our deformation body layer. And now we'll come up here and basically copy the rested position to the current animatable position. Okay, awesome. That's looking really good. Now I feel pretty confident enough to go ahead and bring up the visibility of everything that I hid previously and kind of zoom out just to kind of get an idea of how that rigged body layer looks. And so what we can do now is, continuing to use our transform tool, we can start to kind of see how we're able to move this body around. So really, really cool. So you can see how we could start to essentially kind of maybe add a little bit of bounce to his belly. Just kind of bringing it up like that. So imagine if he's jumping, we could kind of, as he's falling down from a jump, we could probably have his belly kind of come upward like that. Or if he's jumping up, we could maybe have the belly kind of come down like that a little bit. So it's just a really nice level of control that we have over this entire body shape. Now, it really does depend ultimately on the character that you're working with, how you've designed the character. This I found that this approach doesn't always work with every drawing. It works nicely with this drawing because we have a very simple perimeter. If you think about it, his body's shaped like a bean, and we don't really have any other kinds of line work or anything else drawn within that overall form. So if you're trying to use that on a form where you've got a lot of other drawings that may start to look weird if you begin to manipulate the overall form, it may not be the best approach. And I don't know if I would want to use it for something like the hands. Again, I don't know if it would give us the best result in basically moving the hands or the fingers around. It's something you could try, but ultimately it kind of depends on how you've designed a certain area. For the hands, I'm probably going to use a curve deformer, kind of like we did with the boots of our space tentacle monster. I may do something kind of like that. But overall, I think this is a really useful approach. It can really allow you to manipulate just solid forms like this. I could also see this being effective if, say, you had a cartoon character that had like some big giant tufts of hair kind of hanging off. You could probably use that for those tufts of hair to kind of, move and animate them, maybe having those tufts of hair bounce or sway or something like that. Kind of similar to what we could really do with our belly. And of course, maybe we could even have like another alien pop out of his belly or something like that. But again, I just really like how we can rig different parts of a character using curve deformers in just a completely different way by focusing on the perimeter.